Welcome to another episode of Calling Home. Well, this is all about our diaspora. This is a show where we connect with them, learn about their stories, learn something more about the world, about their journey, so that it may inspire the young who are watching us right now from across the Northeast. So if you're joining us, thank you. And expect this evening to be another interesting conversation. Because joining me tonight is Dr. Bremley Lyngdoh, is founder and CEO of Worldview Foundation. For over 2 decades now, he's been actively working on climate change and sustainable development and worked with organizations like United Nations and World Bank to develop programs to encourage citizens of the world to do the same. Dr. Bremley, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much, Karma, for having me on board and looking forward to engaging with your audience.
Yeah. So Dr. Bremley is mostly in London. We are lucky that he happened to be in Geelong because of the lockdown. He's stuck here. He had a very interesting program where he goes on motorcycles across the Northeast and to the neighboring countries to spread awareness about climate change and to raise funds for what he's doing. So he wanted to go to Bhutan because of that he's stuck in Shillong. You left Shillong very early in your life, when you were only 17, and you traveled to about 75 countries, lived there for a couple of years, and you were in London, till very recently. What ties you back home?
Well, it is a blessing in disguise. I came here earlier to lay the groundwork for the second Ride East, which you covered the first one last October. And I was actually going to bring 10 more riders from the US, from Europe, and from the UK. But I wanted to come 5 days earlier before Conrad Sangma was going to flag us off on the Ides of March, on the 15th of March. But I took off on the 10th of March from London, and I landed in Bombay, and then connected into Calcutta, and then Guwahati. So I've been hopping around 4 airports, and then I had to be quarantined because by that time, things were getting worse. But I call all my fellow riders. I said, abort mission, unless you want to stay with me and work in the farm for a couple of months. So sadly, we have had to postpone Ride East 2, but I was going to take these 10 riders all the way to the Tiger's Nest in Bhutan, work with communities, plant some trees, meet with local entrepreneurs in Bhutan, but also in Assam and bits and pieces of Northeast India for 10 days, just like what we did last year, and raise money and awareness in implementing the Sustainable Development Goals and about the Paris Agreement and climate change. So that won't be possible right now, obviously. So we'll have to wait until maybe next year to ride again. But the work continues. Even in this lockdown, we've been able to plant 10,000 trees, a bit of in Assam, a bit in Meghalaya. And I hope that we can do more once these lockdown measures are relaxed. But actually, it's really great to be home rather than being stuck in London right now.
Right. And what pulled you towards sustainability and conservation? Was it an early calling? Was it a passion? How did it happen?
Well, it started very early on in school. We all were born and bred up in Edmonds, and our motto is "Fakta non verba," or deeds, not words. It all started for me I think it was in 5th grade in 1985. If you remember, there was a very big cyclone that hit Bangladesh and killed a lot of people. We had a program called Help Age India then, and we were asked by our teachers in 1985 to raise money. Like with a big file, we went around with the names, donation, 5 rupees, 10 rupees, 15. And I said, okay, let's also collect old clothes, food, medicine, supplies, and then my dad helped me to bring that with the jeep to school. And it was really inspiring that we were in 5th grade and we were able to work to the communities and raise a lot of money and engage with people, in Bangladesh in another country. And we had got this award called Help Age India, and I also got that. It really inspired me, and I thought, if we can do this at class 5, we can do better than the guys at class 10, So it really inspired me, and I thought we should do more if this is the way we've been taught to give back. Then I read Winston Churchill's quote, who said, "You make a living by what you get, but you make a life by what you give." And I didn't understand that. And then my father has also groomed me in this quote saying it's always better to give than to receive. I didn't understand that. I said, but how do you give when you don't even have any money, anything, any knowledge? But giving your time is actually much more important, much more valuable, and sometimes priceless. And people nowadays don't have time anymore. But with COVID-19 being locked down in our homes, with our families, with our kids, with our friends, we need to reconnect, because we've been running a rat race, trying to make money, trying to pay bills, trying to survive. We have lost the connection, not only with our families, but also with nature. So this is where the inspiration comes from. And I think COVID-19 is a wake-up call by Mother Earth to reboot into a new normal, or else far much worse things are going to be waiting for us in the future.
Are you hopeful? That people understand and that they're going to take life steps back and see that Mother Nature heals? Because everywhere I see, as the lockdown, lockdown norms come into effect, more and more people are coming out, and it's looking like business as usual in the bigger cities of India and across the world.
That is true. They're trying to recover, but a lot of governments have actually realized that they've been talking about climate change negotiations, which I've been involved with for the past 25 years, trying to have a Paris Agreement, trying to cut down emissions and trying to promise billions of dollars of funding for developing countries and small island states and least developing nations so that they can adapt and fight climate change. But nothing works. But COVID-19 comes and it locks down the entire global economy, and the global emissions came down, even though temporarily. But dolphins have been coming back in the canals of Venice. The oceans are cleaning up. The ozone hole is healing. Birds are chirping again. There's clear blue skies and the pollution of Delhi, even in cities like Beijing and Shanghai. So people have noticed that. And they've even noticed that they don't even have to go to work, to their offices, and waste time in transport and get stressed out. They can work from home. I mean, 90% of the online tech jobs, you can work from the privacy of your homes, taking care of your family, taking care of your kids, even for single moms or single dads. You can manage these things. And companies like Twitter and Google and Microsoft and Facebook are actually saying, do not come back to office, work from home permanently. This will save millions, hundreds of millions of tons of carbon. If hundreds of millions of people work from home, they don't have to commute, they don't have to go out and waste time on driving and traffic and be stressed. They can be as productive working from home as we are right now, talking from our screens at home. So this is going to be the new normal, because people will have to keep their social distancing. And I think a lot of young people are demanding for a green recovery, whereby people will be engaged in more greener projects to participate in regenerative industries or economies rather than extractive fossil fuel-based economies. As you know, the price of oil went negative in the United States. Never before in the history of the US has oil prices gone negative since they started drilling oil. So that's a clear signal that Mother Earth is sending to every human on the planet. So if we don't wake up now, I think we'll be very sorry, or at least the future generation will pay the heaviest price.
Right. If you're joining us right now, you're watching calling speaking to Dr. Bremley Lyngdoh, who's been working on climate change and sustainable development for over 2 decades now. And as he said earlier, he's been working on several changes around the world. If you have any questions, you can put it up on the comment section. So, can you also tell us, Doctor, about your work that you've done with United Nations and the World Bank? Because I'm sure our viewers would like to know that.
Sure. So, like, my engagement started back in '95. Back then, I was working in small forestry projects here, restoring cloud forests with a few NGOs. I was in Scouts and Guides, and then I went to Delhi. I was in University of Delhi. I left here at 17 straight after PU. I always wanted to, fly. So I thought I'll enroll myself in the Delhi #1 Air Squadron. So while I was in university, I was also flying. I thought that one day, as a pilot, you could fly to space, the best fighter pilots. But as you know, in the Air Force, once you clear the SSBs, you then have to sign a bond for 27 years if you want to go into the fighter's wing. And then your passport would be impounded and you won't be able to travel or leave the country for the next 27 years of your life, which means half your life would be gone. They don't have any short service commissions like the Navy or the Army, which you can go in at 5 years and get out and do whatever you want with your life. Not in the Air Force, because it's very expensive to train fighter pilots, and you can't just jump to commercial piloting once you got your license. Anyway, at the same time, I was working with restoration projects, in a project called the Eco Regeneration of the Pushkar Lake Valley Ecosystem in Rajasthan, to green these deserts with an organization called the Consortium of Indian Scientists for Sustainable Development. It was a completely different world for me, coming from Meghalaya, going to the frontiers of Rajasthan and the heat of the desert, and looking at how we can green desert from it expanding into the cities because of huge dust storms that cover everything. So it was an amazing project funded by the World Bank and the US government back then in the early 90s. And I was involved in the educational program to engage students, fellowships coming from the United States, from Europe and Australia, to do PhD programs and work with kids. And after that, I joined the UNDP in New Delhi. After I graduated, after I left the Air Force, I was working with the Gulf of Mannar project with MS Swaminathan Foundation in Tamil Nadu to restore coral reefs that are being destroyed from commercial fishing, over commercial fishing. It was a very interesting project. It was the first GEF-funded project in India. GEF meaning the Global Environment Facility of the World Bank, the UNDP, and the UN Environment Program. It was very interesting to train local fishermen to come on land, reduce their fishing, commercial fishing, and allow the coral reefs to regenerate their ecosystem. It was an amazing project. So it was nice to come from the cloud forests in Meghalaya, go work in the deserts of Rajasthan, and then engage with the coastal communities in Tamil Nadu in 3 different ecosystems. After that took me to New York, where I was working with the UN Division for Sustainable Development, more at the policy level, to shape the Summit on Sustainable Development that was hosted by the government of South Africa in 2002, bringing together different stakeholders from around the world, which include youth, indigenous people, farmers, trade union, local authorities, religious leaders, scientific communities, and business leaders. So it was very interesting to bring these different stakeholders in the actual negotiating tables with governments at the UN level to talk about sustainable development. And during that time, the summit happened in New York, the big one, the Millennium Summit, which then gave birth to the Millennium Development Goals, the 8 of them that preceded the Sustainable Development Goals that we're talking about now. So then the Prime Minister of India, late Atal Bihari Vajpayee, appointed me to be India's youth representative, as mandated by the General Assembly, where every member state can include a youth delegate or representative in its delegation to the historic Millennium Assembly. And there I was given 10 minutes to address the General Assembly on behalf of the youth of our country, like other countries did the same. And my job was to bring governments to understand that young people need to be engaged as partners in decision making to implement these Millennium Development Goals. There were 8 of them there. And I was trying to push on target number 16 in goal number 8 to create meaningful employment opportunities for young people, not only in India, but worldwide. And after my political or presentation at the UN 6 governments came up to me and they said, how can we help? How can we work? Then out of that was created the Youth Employment Summit campaign that I led for a decade, for 10 years, from 2002 to 2012. It was an amazing experience. And after I graduated from Columbia University in New York, I went to work for the World Bank in the economic and policy team. And there I was working with client countries to look at how do we integrate environmental policies with poverty strategies together, because sometimes people in these two camps don't talk. The environmental conservationists go in one direction and the development guys go in the other. But these two need to come together, the development guys and the environment guys. So I had to look for real-time economic data to convince ministers of finance that these two issues are linked. So that's the piece of work I did at the bank. And after that, I moved to Boston to work with a Harvard MIT think tank to design renewable energy projects for young people in 5 developing countries for a year as part of the Youth Employment Summit campaign. And then I moved to London in 2004 to join the London School of Economics to do more research looking at forestry economics, natural capital accounting, and agriculture. And that research took me back to Meghalaya, where I was looking at the impact of the Supreme Court logging ban in West Khasi Hills for 3 years. And out of that, I started the project here in Northeast India, based on the data I'd got from the London School of Economics. And that's how the projects are formed here. And we've been working until now in different states, including Assam, Nagaland, Manipur. We want to expand this in the spirit of regenerative agriculture and agroforestry systems, and beyond our borders to Myanmar and Bangladesh and Sri Lanka and Nepal and Bhutan. So hence I thought we should bring some fun into our work by designing a motorcycle ride called Ride East, which you know about. So because all work and no play makes Jack a dull guy. So you gotta have some fun in between. So I thought, why not? How about building a community on wheels? So that's how we started Ride East. So all that journey to all these countries around the world, you got to come back home and also make a difference in your own backyard.
Well, what a brilliant journey, Dr. Bremley. So you told me a very interesting fact that the late Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee was the one who sent you to UN to attend a very important conference, and you said that you got 10 minutes to address the UN General Assembly. How was the experience?
I think it was the peak of where I could go in my career at that time. You know, I was 24, 25, and here I was representing the voice of 300 million young people in India. I drafted my statement, but it had to go to the Ministry of External Affairs in Delhi. Every word had to be approved, even though it was a youth statement on behalf of the youth. And then I had to come back to New York, and it had to be translated in all the official languages of the UN. And then I could deliver it word for word, comma, full stop, everything. It was very interesting. But I must confess, I was nervous, but I also had to, be confident, because I was not speaking just on behalf of the youth of India, but also for the youth of the world, whose voices were not represented in the General Assembly, and convince member states that we need to engage young people proactively, not as just tokens to be used only for politics, but for the real world, real solutions, and real projects.
Right. If you're joining us right now, you're watching Calling Home, and we are speaking in conversation with Dr. Bremley Lyngdoh. He's the founder and CEO of Worldview Impact Foundation. For 2 decades now, he's been actively working on climate change and sustainable development. What an incredible difference. So you graduated. Now keep correcting me if I may be wrong. You graduated. After the Air Force, you joined World Bank? No.
UNDP.
UNDP. After UNDP, you joined World Bank?
No, the United Nations Commission on
United Nations in New York.
Yep.
And then after that, you went to the London School of Economics?
No, to Columbia University.
to Columbia University, okay. Gets
New
better and
York,
better.
and
Yeah.
then I went to the World Bank.
Okay, World Bank.
And then from the World Bank, I went to a Harvard MIT think tank in Boston.
Harvard, MIT, wow.
And then I came to the London School of Economics.
London School of Economics.
And then I came back home to do research in
Brilliant.
West Casinos.
That's like perfect 10, yeah?
Yeah.
So I'll tell you, one more interesting fact about Dr. Bremley Lyngdoh. Most of us used to collect stamps back when video games were not there. Some of us used to collect currency, coins, but Dr. Lyngdoh collects degrees. I may have 3 degrees. You have 10 degrees?
I lost track.
What fascination with collecting degrees? And you still look young.
Yeah. That's what happens when you plant 10 million trees. You're just busy planting trees all the time. They energize you. You become the son of the soil. I mean, you're married to the planet, right? So you have no time to sleep, no time to eat. So you don't have time to age. Your mission is bigger. Your mission is bigger than life.
So remember, if you plant trees,
yes,
more and more trees, you'll start looking younger, like Dr. Lyngdoh. Your skin will glow. So trees, if you want to look handsome, if you want to look beautiful, you better start planting trees. So that's one mantra that I'm going to carry with me. But you still haven't told us about the 10 or 10 plus degrees.
Oh God! Oh, let's forget about the degrees. This piece of paper just gets you to the door, but it's what you do with that knowledge in that piece of paper. Because this is what my dad said. He said, "Son, it's very nice to have fancy degrees from Ivy League schools, all the way in New York at Columbia University, London School of Economics. Very nice to trying to save the world, working for the UN in New York and the World Bank in DC. But at the end of the day, how can you save the world when you can't even do anything for your own farmers in your own backyard? Charity starts at home." And he also said that a tree with no roots bears no fruits, and it withers away in the lightest breeze. I said, ouch, that's like right in the heart. Stab. So I said, okay, fine. You want me to come back home? So you think I'm rootless? I'm out there in the middle of nowhere trying to prove myself, and I'm like going to shake off and fall. And I said, okay, open some doors. So, well, you come, we'll do something. So that research of coming back home from the London School of Economics after crossing the Atlantic was to accept the challenge from my dad and actually execute the project here, not waiting for anyone, for any politician, any government institution, or any funds. Just do it yourself and bring people that you care, raise the funding, create the spirit of social entrepreneurship, bring people who care, ride your motorcycles, just do it, no matter how small it is. If you believe that's important, you got to prove yourself. Those fancy degrees means nothing unless and until you can prove it on the ground to really make an impact. So that's all I have to say.
Right. There is a question from Subarna, our producer. She says, how has COVID-19 impacted your work? We've seen some positive environmental effects like reduced carbon emissions and improved air quality. But what are some of the challenges to the ecosystem that have risen because of COVID-19?
Yes, for the planet, COVID-19 was like a reboot, putting all humans locked in their homes like prisons while the wildlife roams free. It's like, where have all the humans gone? Like, you can see photos of lions like walking around golf courses in South Africa. Even in our state, we've got elephants, wild boars, deer jumping around, bears coming out, tigers roaming everywhere, and even the dolphins, not only on land, but also in the oceans, but also in the air. So it's like a reboot. It's like there's no economic activity, there's no burning of fossil fuels. Planet is healing while humans are in lockdown, even in just 2 months. The global emissions reduced by like 10% or more in just these 2 months, but it's not enough to control the climate change that we're heading to the tipping point. So we would need a COVID-19 every year to stabilize the planet, to avert disastrous, irreversible climate change. So, but this is a wake-up call to show to governments, all countries on the planet, that we can do lockdown. We can still survive. The basic essentials are food, electricity, water, and and care. We don't need like Gucci bags and Prada bags. At the end of the day, survival. All those fancy stuff mean nothing. It's just healthy food, quality of life, mental, spiritual, physical health that are priceless. So people are reevaluating themselves. What is important in life? Is it family, spending time with your kids at home, teaching your kids homework, working with them, spending time with your wife, your family, your parents, who you never had time to even have a conversation with? Everyone is reevaluating their values. What's more important to life? Is there something more rather than run the rat race? So, and that's the same thing with our ecosystems. As they heal, people go out to their parks and they run and say, wow, things have changed. What can I do better to maintain this while I was in lockdown? So I think this is what we need to move to. A new normal is to respect nature, because it's much, much more powerful than we humans, and it can wipe us out from the planet. We don't need to save the planet. We need to save ourselves, because the planet will be fine, but just without humans. And it's done that before. So I think if us 7 billion on the planet, we don't wake up, much more deadlier virus will come out from the meltdown of glaciers in the Arctic, in the Antarctic. There are viruses that are locked down in the permafrost that have been there for millions of years before humans even existed on the face of this planet. If those glaciers melt, if those viruses are released into our oceans, into our food systems, we are so dead in the water.
Right. So if you have any question for Dr. Bremley, you can certainly put it across right here on the comment section. You were talking about how to reach out to the rest of the world, but what about the youth? How do we reach out to them? In this world of Instagram, social media, there's a lot of distraction. I don't see enough involvement by the youth. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Actually, this generation right now, Greta's generation, is actually the most awakened generation, thanks to young people like Greta. But Greta is in Sweden. She's European. She's got the whole media industry following her everywhere. But there are thousands of other young people just like Greta in Africa and Latin America, in Asia, that have been inspired or have done something like her, but no one recognizes, because the media only covers negativity. There's a lot of positive news out there in the world, but nobody cares to cover these unsung heroes, just like Greta. So thanks to Greta, she's been able to mobilize millions of young people in every Fridays, wherever I've joined her march, I've met her, I'm so inspired. But I wish governments listen to her, give them like a wake-up call, rather than just treat these little kids like, tokenistic little heroes out there. Okay, blah, let them talk, put them in the stage and they talk. But at the end of the day, there's no support given to them. If they're really serious, these amazing kids that even I mentor and work with, they've got brilliant ideas. And all we have to do is mentor them, give them the tools, or even a little bit of money so that they can execute their little projects while they're in school, before high school, and maybe by university they might have launched their own company. I've seen that, teenage millionaires, or they don't even have to be millionaires. I'm just talking about an innovation, a social innovation that could change the world. Teenagers can do it, and they don't have to be in Harvard educated or Oxford educated. No, they're like in little towns of Africa with nothing, but they've just got the brain power. They just need to be recognized, and we need to bring the cameras to these kids, and they can inspire a whole generation. So that's my correction. It's just like the media doesn't care about these people. And I wish there are more people like you and East Mojo going around like investigative journalists collecting positive stories to sell, not negative news. I think you're muted.
Yeah, I was. I don't know, there's some kind of that you're trying to work, and I have checked everything. Do you have an audio or something on, Dr. Bremley, there? check if you have anything on.
The only thing on is my speaker, but I can turn it off.
Yeah, if you can turn off your speaker. That's done now. Check. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Yeah, brilliant. So there's no echo now. Yeah. So what I want to do is there a collective strategy that, all of us can work on as far as climate change and sustainable development is concerned? There's also one side, because every time we try to voice our concerns about climate change, we try to voice our concerns about sustainable development, there is this group, a pocket of power, some of the world leaders who keep saying that that activists and journalists are being too alarmist. Are we being too alarmist?
I don't think so, because the science speaks for itself. The IPCC report and all the scientists from around the world have given the final ultimate warning. If nothing is done in the next 5 years to stabilize the atmospheric temperature on the planet, it'll be already too late, not even 10 years. As you can see, the impact of these storms are intensifying every year, and there might be another big super cyclone coming, and God knows where it's going to hit. And then also the volcanoes are erupting much more frequently now. And I've read some research that states that because of the meltdown of glaciers, and these glaciers, they weigh billions of tons. And as it melts, that weight is also evaporating, right? So the core of the planet, the magma from inside, it's like a pressure cooker. So it's coming out and it's boiling. So obviously all the volcanoes are also erupting everywhere. And you have earthquakes more frequent because the planet is trying to cool itself down by erupting big volcanoes. So possibly when big super volcanoes erupt, they will cast like a big cloud of volcanic ash around the planet, and that will cool the planet down again to what it was. The planet is trying to go into reboot mode now. As the glaciers melt, magma is pressuring volcano to erupt, triggering earthquakes everywhere. If you follow them, the amount of earthquakes and volcanic activity is just crazy, so much more frequent. Storms are going crazy, much and more intense. Forests are burning like crazy everywhere. Just madness. And, it's totally out of control. So we are heading to that point of no return. So those people that call ourselves alarmists must be singing from a different hymn book, I would say. So they completely lost the plot. They must be funded by big oil or something like that. You're mute again.
From the macro to what you talked about, let's dive into your personal journey right now. You've come home to make a difference, work especially in the Northeast, and you've got a very interesting mission, that is to plant 1 billion mangrove trees by 2030. Tell us more about this initiative, and also tell our viewers how they can get involved with you.
Yes. So, my dad passed away in 2012. But we had started something here, so I stayed back after that because I needed to complete what he couldn't. So after that, my colleagues who were working in Sri Lanka with me had left Sri Lanka because of some political turmoil, and they had moved to Myanmar, which has just opened its boundary from being locked down by the military junta for 50 years. And they said, Bremley, you've been working on these RED projects and carbon credit projects in different countries. How about you come and help us in Myanmar to see how we can restore mangrove ecosystems? Now, I'm a cloud forest guy. I know nothing about marine ecosystems and mangrove forests. I know about them, but I don't know how they function and work. So I crossed the border and went to Myanmar, and we worked with 2 marine science universities, Patang and May, to train them with a grant from a Norwegian foundation. And then we planted 3 million trees with that grant and trained like 50 students from these 2 universities, sent them to Thailand, to the AIT, and then brought them back with master's and PhD degrees. And those guys are now engaged in our project in Myanmar, and we call it Thor Heyerdahl Climate Park. Thor Heyerdahl was the guy, famous Norwegian explorer and scientist, who crossed the Pacific Ocean in his little boat called the Kon-Tiki. There's a film called the Kon-Tiki. He wanted to prove to the world that the Polynesians came from Bolivia or Peru and cut down some balsa wood that was light, and they made a raft, and they went all the way to Polynesia. He wanted to prove to the world, and he did that in about 90 days on his little boat. So Thor Heidel was involved with us, or with my NGO, way back in the 70s, but he was an amazing adventurer who was ringing the alarm bells of the United Nations back in the 1940s when he crossed the Pacific Ocean in his little boat. So when I went to Myanmar, we thought we should bring the spirit of this Norwegian explorer and name the project as Thor Heidel Climate Park. And then in 2017, I won an award with a company in Oxford called the Biocarbon Engineering. And we did a competition called the Bridge Builder Challenge, which was supported by the Pope in the Vatican, as Trump was calling for Americans to build a wall against Mexicans to block them, the immigrants. The Pope was saying you got to build bridges, not walls. So the Bridge Builder Challenge was born, blessed by the Pope from the Vatican, and 750 projects were pitched, and we were the top 5. So we got $250,000 to plant trees with drones, tree planting drones and tree mapping drones, combined with artificial intelligence, NASA satellites, and and these pilots that came to use like high-tech drones to plant and map mangrove forests in Myanmar and map everything in 3D using scanners and so on. It was just space age. It was mind-blowing. So we did that, we tested that, and now we've got 9.5 million trees on the ground. And I hope by this year we will reach 10 million. But obviously our target is to do 1 billion trees by 2030, so we can draw down 1 billion tons of carbon and protect coastal communities like in the Sundarbans and in Myanmar and 120 other countries around the world where mangrove trees can grow, so that we can shield them from massive storms and tidal waves and tsunamis as the climate changes, because we can't stop that. We can only adapt and mitigate. So this is what we're doing, but we're also working here in Northeast India with foundations, with groups in different states to restore cloud forests, because you need to do both ecosystem highlands here in the Himalayan foothills across Bhutan and Arunachal Pradesh and Assam, Northeast, to prevent large-scale deforestation and prevent topsoil runoff and flash floods, and also work with people by the sea to prevent them from massive storms and floods, like in the Sundarbans and in Myanmar, where Cyclone Nargis in 2008 killed 150,000 people in one blow. So we want to protect those lives, those vulnerable people who live by the sea in the least developing countries, and this is our initiative. And right now, I'm working with a group from London that are going to bring big investments to Myanmar, Regen Future Capital, to help scale up that project and bring private investments, so that when we plant these trees, you can get carbon credits, and big companies that have polluted the planet in the last 50 years can buy the carbon credits that are produced from our mangrove trees and create a carbon market that is produced from blue carbon projects, such as the project in Myanmar and also projects here. So we reboot the carbon market, whereby we can create millions of jobs and sell carbon from restoring ecosystems that have been degraded. So I'm looking forward to engaging with Regen. Obviously, I got stuck here, but once we are free, I'm going to be traveling to Myanmar to, scale up our operations there to another 2,000 hectares next year, another 2,000 next year, and bring big scale money from pension funds and big investors from both the US and Europe.
Dr. How justified is it for big companies, big global conglomerates who do so much pollution, producing stuff at their factories and all, to suddenly turn around and buy carbon credits instead of doing their part to bring down pollution?
Well, they have to do both, because if they engage with us, they have to reduce their emissions first by making themselves neutral for the past, decades or whatever. And then they have to also look into greener ways of operating, whether it's working from home or using clean energy in the offices, using light-saving, energy-saving bulbs, recycling. So what we're trying to encourage corporates that are working with us is looking at total accounting report. total accounting frameworks where you account for everything, not just carbon, but the way you treat your staff, the way you do your business activities, the way you buy stuff from every country, because you might be manufacturing your stuff in China or India. So you must account for the carbon also for shipping those stuff to your clients or to your consumers in Europe or in America, even though your products are manufactured in other countries, there's a carbon footprint. So how do you reduce that? So all those metrics are in place. And as a matter of fact, we are working on going beyond carbon and looking at total ecosystem services payments, like in Costa Rica, payment for ecosystem services, because carbon is really cheap. It doesn't even account for soil productivity, for water retention, for flood defense, storm defense, medicinal plants, biodiversity. If you add all the services that 1 hectare of mangrove provides to the world in 1 year, it's $200,000, 1 hectare with 2,500 trees. So imagine 2,500 trees standing, doing all these amazing stuff is worth $200,000 a year. That's a lot of money of total economic services, but nobody measures that because the way we measure our GDP, the way we account growth is totally wrong. That's what my professor said at Columbia University, Joseph Stiglitz, who won the Nobel Prize for Economics. He said the way nation states, the way our governments measure growth using GDP is so old school, is so wrong. They don't account for natural capital. They don't account for cultural capital, for human capital, and intellectual capital. So they're just looking at growth from pure oil and extractive industries and burning fossil fuel. So unless and until we shift the way we do business or the way we teach our kids economics and the way we account for our growth in our countries, it's not going to work if we still base on an oil-based measurement or metrics. But I like what Bhutan is doing because their measurement is different from the rest of the world. They're looking at wellness and well-being and gross national happiness. And I wish that can be deployed at scale in many other countries. New Zealand is trying to do that, and also Finland is trying to do that. But I think this COVID-19 is a wake-up call for economies to recalibrate and remeasure themselves in the way they operate.
Right. Dr. Lyngdoh also would like to address, as far as carbon offsets are concerned, since we're on that subject, there were some reports, that in certain countries, there was a carbon offset scam also. What do you have to say on that?
Oh, yes. There's so many of them, especially during the CDM. The CDM was created by the Kyoto Protocol, which is where rich countries, Annex 1s, would pay poor countries, Annex 2. So polluting countries pay non-polluting countries or least developing countries to change their industries, to change the way they do business, and so on and so forth. Like India and China would benefit from the United States and the European Union, for example, or Brazil. But frankly, there was so much corruption in how this CDM, the Carbon Development Mechanism projects, that there was so much corruption. They were accounting for dams that was actually polluting more with all that steel, with all that cement, and they were claiming carbon credits, and there was such a scam, and it was like inundating the market. It was, it lost faith, and people don't trust the CDM anymore, and it collapsed, and the Kyoto Protocol is dead in the water. But what we are using right now is a voluntary standard, which is a US-based VCS, which is very rigorous, which they come and check basically every year, to count every tree, check your books, check your accounts, check the impact on the communities, audit everything. And now with drones and satellites, so basically no one can cheat anymore. If you cheat, you lose all your credits, you got to pay them back. But you're right, during the CDM, there were so many scams in India and China and other developing countries trying to rip off the rich countries to pay them, and negotiating and lockjam. It was crazy. It was such a circus in these negotiations. And it broke down in Copenhagen, and I was there, because they couldn't agree for it. But I'm really glad that there's a voluntary market where corporates who really care, who want to change the way they do business, are engaged using a very robust measurement standard. And those are the guys we want to work with.
Right. Also would like to, focus your attention on one more interesting piece, which of course at one time a paper in fact, which at one time horrified scientists and ecologists, which said that planting trees in the wrong places would exacerbate global warming, create fire hazards, and devastate wildlife. Uh, uh, what do you have to say about that? Because people are planting trees sometimes in the wrong place. Now, Ladakh, for example, a number of trees are being planted in an area which is supposed to be a high altitude desert.
Correct. I agree with you, because if you green all the deserts, for example, like I've been to Saudi Arabia. The government of Saudi Arabia believes in the big promise in the Quran to green the desert of Saudi Arabia. But imagine if the Saudi Arabian desert became green, it would change the jet stream completely, and Europe would freeze, because it would change everything. The jet stream would change. If you also green the Sahara Desert, the Amazon forest would die, because the dust from the Sahara Desert blows across the Atlantic Ocean, and it provides nutrients to the rainforest in Brazil. So there's a reason to have deserts. There's a reason to have highland ecosystems to be barren. There's a reason to have grasslands. You should not interfere with those ecosystems. They have their own functions. But you need to protect and regenerate the natural forests that were there, that have been cut down. And they have to be natural forests, not eucalyptus trees, not some other freak species that is not meant to be on that part of land, that is not native to that land, that will destroy the ecosystem and create, fires instead. So you have to listen to the wisdom of the indigenous people who know the old traditions, who know the species, who know the science, even though it's not documented. You need to listen to the native Aboriginal people who lived there way before, our species, or the smart fellows who've been educated in top universities go around and tell them what to do. I think we need to have a balance of educating people. Like you can't change ecosystems and plant trees in the wrong places, but you need to do a whole environmental impact assessment of the place before you intervene in your projects, and what species you must choose. You must be very wise. You must consult. Even in Myanmar, we are looking at different species of mangroves that grow by the coast, because coastal mangroves are different from delta mangroves. If you bring the species from the delta to the coast, it won't grow. If you take the species from the coast to the delta, it won't grow. It will die. So there's a reason why these species, 75 species of different mangrove trees exist. Each tree is different. They have a different role. Here in the cloud forest also, there are so many species of trees that grow. We cannot have monocropping. It has to be an integrated biodiversity where it thrives, the web of life. And that can only come from experience of people who know ecology, who know how to work with nature. So we can't just plant monocrops in wrong places. We would destroy the hydrology of the ecosystem. So you're right on that.
Right. The UN has about 17 sustainable development goals that aim to end poverty and protect the planet and ensure that all people enjoy peace and prosperity by 2030. You've been involved with this. Do you think they'll be able to get enough money? You talked about finance, you talked about investment into this development, and how should this capital be allocated to help different countries meet goals because of the corruption that is involved in so many of the developing countries?
Yes, the Sustainable Development Goals preceded the Millennium Development Goals that I mentioned about to you earlier, that I was involved in crafting in the early days in 2020 years ago. The SDGs now have a more elaborative, comprehensive set of goals that have grown from the 8 first goals, the MDGs, and they are much more robust. They're all linked. And I think if India is able to achieve all those 17 goals in just one country, in our different states, half of the SDGs would have been achieved for the whole planet, just because of the size and the nature of our country. But easier said than done, because with the amount of leakage, as you said, corruption and so on and so forth, our institutions, our check and responsibilities, and the impact of climate change can push you back by years from whatever you're supposed to achieve by 2030. So it's not just for governments. These goals were written by governments, by policymakers at the UN level, but without the participation, active participation of young people, of women, of farmers, of local authorities, of other stakeholders ain't gonna work. I'm sorry. And the private sector. Governments, the UN doesn't have that kind of money. Until and unless you engage the private sector to change course, to take corrective actions, to engage, to change at the stakeholder level, and the way they do business, we're never going to reach those goals. No country will be able to. But having said that, we have an initiative in Switzerland that's called the Initiatives of Change, where we meet every summer in this Code Dialogue for Land and Security. And this year we call it the Code Dialogue on Environment and Security. As a matter of fact, Meghalaya was born out of the dialogue in Ko and Panchgani back in the 60s. They used nonviolent direct action where our political leaders came into a consensus and really had a cordial diplomatic relationship with Assam to carve out Meghalaya, where my father was also involved. But every summer we meet in Ko, and last year I invited Conrad Sangma and another officer who came to Ko to talk about the commitment of Meghalaya as it turns 50 years in 2022 and what we should do to restore our mountain ecosystems, having come into that and using the Sustainable Development Goals as the benchmark. But having said that, finance is key, financing for development. How do you do that? Because banks alone right now are drying up. So where does the money come from? What about all those young people with, $10 here, $20 here, $15 here? If they want to invest to another little farmer somewhere in Northeast India or in the middle of Africa who has a little farm where he grows tomatoes, and he doesn't have to put the money through the bank and pay like $10 in transfer fees, how can he do that? Peer-to-peer lending, me to you, directly. Enter the world of blockchain and artificial intelligence. So out of Ko, initiative was created called Earth Bank, which is the first ever digital banking platform that my colleagues are involved. And right now they've just launched in India to work in the Sundarbans to give microloans to the poorest people, 150,000 borrowers of microfinance loans who are planting mangrove trees in the Sundarbans where the swamp tigers live. So I'm very proud to be involved with them. And I hope that we can scale what Earth Bank is doing in West Bengal to cover the entire 8 states in Northeast India, where young people who bank with Earth Bank in the United States or Europe would put in money in the savings bank account. And that savings bank account from these young people would then be invested into microfinance institutions like in India or elsewhere, where farmers are paid directly with very cheap loans instead of 17 or 15%, cutting out the loan sharks. And they restore ecosystems wherever they are, and they get paid for that. So this is the new world of global digital banking from your wallet. Your phone is your wallet. You don't have to be going to the bank anymore. That's history. So let's hope we can really scale that up and make it work for millions of farmers all across our country.
Right. Dr. Since we are running out of time, I'd like to ask you one more controversial question, because since you work with organizations all over the world, I'd just like to have your opinion on the biggest casualty, so to say, as far as the a world global organization is concerned, the credibility of WHO post coronavirus, the way it is looked at it. How do you see this, and can WHO's credibility be restored again?
Yes, every UN institution or the head of the institution is politically appointed, like the current head is appointed from Ethiopia. And obviously every head has a different agenda, dictated by a different agenda, whether he's one side or the other, as we know, and how fast they react to a global pandemic, and how it's all about leadership from the top, right? So when I was working for the UN, I was really honored to have Kofi Annan as my boss. Now, Kofi Annan was not a political appointee. He rose from the ranks as a staff member of the United Nations. I think he was the only one who rose from the ranks of the staff. And obviously, Shashi Tharoor was also like him. He was working very closely with Kofi Annan, and I campaigned very hard for Shashi to be the next Secretary General because it was Asia's turn. But then Ban Ki-moon was elected, because the United States backed him, and he was a former Minister of Foreign Affairs from South Korea. But I wish Shashi had got in, because Shashi was also like Kofi Annan from the ranks of the staff. So you need to have leaders who are in touch with the ground realities, with the people, with the staff, with field experience, and not just a politician who doesn't know much, who doesn't have ground realities, or who has a different agenda. It's a highly political position to be, but I think it needs to win its credibility back, or else it would lose its funding from the U.S. government that pays like $400 million a year, and that will be a big blow to the rest of the developing world that need money from the WHO just because of one leader. So we need to choose our leaders wisely wherever they sit, no matter it's the World Bank or the WHO or the UN or the IMF. Leaders need to be ones that are credible, that lead from their heart and serve the people and take rapid action and forget their political ambitions.
Right. We've got about 4 minutes, and the final question to you. Tell us about Worldview Impact Foundation, and what did you set to achieve when you started it?
Well, I was inspired by my mentor, whose name is Arne Fjørtoft, who worked with Thor Heyerdahl. So I've been working with Arne Fjørtoft, who is now 83. He still sends me emails in the middle of the night at 9 o'clock, still typing in his keyboard. Hats off to the guy, he never gives up. And he said, Bremley, if I give up, I will die. And what am I going to say to my grandchildren? Granddad didn't do his job enough, so I must continue till my last breath. I mean, he's 83 and still drafting proposals and still sending budgets to the Norwegian government to finance people in the least developing countries. He uses all his pension money from Norway to pay for fishermen in Sri Lanka and other countries. I mean, the guy is like amazing. He's like this peace-loving Norwegian Viking. So in honor of Arne, I created this foundation to amplify his work in 60 different countries that he's been working and engage young people in the SDGs, especially young people that have access to capital and to high net worth individuals in Europe, in the UK, and the US. But the goal of a Worldview Impact Foundation is to create a paradigm shift in the minds and hearts of young people, to awaken the generation out there to take the powers in the hand and not wait for their governments and their politicians, but to take action now and collectively as a team, because if they don't do it now, they will have no future. So it's about creating positive change at the grassroots. That's what we're all about.
Right. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Dr. Bremley, for joining us. It's been a joy. I'm enlightened by this conversation, and I do hope our viewers enjoyed it too. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for all you do, for your energy and all that you bring to the table to us, the people of Northeast India. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My pleasure. Take care.
With that, we come to the end of this show. Calling Home will be back with another interesting individual to talk to. Thank you. Do like, follow us, subscribe on all our social media channels. Thanks for watching it.